What's going on, gardeners? By now I'm sure you have your raised beds built, filled with melts mix, your layout planned, and now what? Can you start planting outside, no matter the weather, and as many plants as you want? But of course not. That's why I made a complete square foot gardening planting guide for beginners, where we'll see when is the best time to start planting outside, what spacing is recommended to follow, spoiler alert, male is not always right, we'll talk about what to plant together, or in other words, companion planting, and much, much more. Hey, for all of you that don't know me, I'm Jan, and welcome to my small garden quest where you can see my gardening journey and learn a lot about gardening. And now, without further ado, let's dig into the main content. One of the common mistakes I see new and experienced gardeners do year after year is to start planting outside too early, and then realizing that a late frost will hit their garden, killing every single one of their plants, costing them hundreds of dollars to rebuy and replant them. This happens because the spring weather is deceiving. Sometimes we have warm periods and we can already smell the summer, but then in the middle of April, like a thunder from the blue sky, the temperatures drop to 20 degrees and we have 6 inches of snow. You would think that asking other gardeners when to start planting outside can be helpful, but can you imagine a gardener from Texas suggesting to plant tomatoes outside in March to a gardener in Montana? Because every gardener lives in another area with its specific climate, we all have different dates when we can start planting. So, to help ourselves in deciding when to start planting, we need to mark only one date on our calendar. That's the last frost date, and plan according to it. To find it, you can simply type in Google last frost date and the area you live in, and usually the first result will be the date you're looking for. Now that you know your last frost date, you would think that you can plant all your plants on that day. Wrong. Some of your plants actually prefer to be planted a few weeks before your last frost date, and some of them prefer to be planted few weeks after. Heat-loving plants like peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, and so on will actually perform better when the night temperatures won't fall under 50 degrees. And cold-loving plants will grow best in cooler spring rather than the hot summer. So plant your brassica family plants, peas, carrots, and other cold hardy plants 2 to 4 weeks before your last frost date. And if a cold snap is coming, cover them with some fleece to protect them. To find all the timings for when to plant what, you can check a beautiful chart in the Square Foot Gardening book. And if you don't have it, I will leave a link in the comments so you can go and check it out. The next thing we need to figure out if we want to have a successful garden is our planting spacing. And did you know that not all the Square Foot Gardening planting spacings from the book are correct? Hear me out. Square foot gardening is an intensive growing method, meaning we want to squeeze as many plants as we can in the smallest area possible. But this can raise a bigger issue: overcrowding. This will result in smaller crop yields with smaller vegetables, the exact opposite of what we want. Also, we don't want to dedicate too much space to a single plant, wasting precious resources. So, Mayers recommends in his book to use 4 common spacings and a bonus one. We start with the smallest plants that are planted 16 per square foot, like radishes and carrots. To make this grid, you simply divide your square foot in 4 squares, and then poke 4 holes in each square, giving you a total of 16 holes, ready for planting. For medium plants like onions and bush beans, we need to plant them 9 per square foot. To make this pattern, you simply make a horn gesture and draw 4 lines in our melts mix. What we are left with is 9 squares in which we can plant our plants. Large vegetables like lettuce and parsnip are planted 4 per square foot. Here you simply divide your square in 4 equal quarters and you have your planting layout ready. Extra large plants like tomatoes and peppers are planted 1 per square foot, so we don't need to draw extra lines in the soil. And all that is left is the bonus section, the extra large plants, like melons and zucchini. And here my disagreement with Mel's planting layout arise. As mentioned, the planting layout shouldn't waste space, but by following the square foot gardening book, you would plant a zucchini in a 3x3 grid. 9 square feet for one plant? In my opinion, we can grow 2 zucchini plants in the same amount. Heck, I grow them in a 2x2 grid. Look at this raised bed filled with zucchinis, 6 plants to be exact, and the area they are covering is 6x4 feet. By Mel's recommendation, I shouldn't plant more than 2 plants in this area, but I managed to grow more than double the amount. Other than that, I didn't find any optimizations needed for his spacings. If you want a full list of square foot gardening planting spacings, I will leave a link in the top right corner in the description so you can go and check it out. Now let's see what is the best way to plant your transplants in your newly drawn spaces. And after that, I will tell you a few tricks on how to plant tomatoes in the square foot gardening grid to maximize their growing potential. Here, these are your average healthy looking transplants: a root bulb, the stem, fake leaves, and finally true leaves. To plant them, obviously first dig a hole slightly bigger than the transplant root bulb is. If you want, you can also add any fertilizers now. But over the years, I found that I don't need them. A healthy soil doesn't need supplements. Now, a beginner gardener would think that you need to plant them up to the existing soil line. Wrong. To maximize their strength, plant them up until the first true leaves. Lightly press them down into the native soil, and please be gentle because you're risking to crush their fragile stem. So, what's the trick with tomatoes? Here you can trim all the leaves except the top crown and plant them as deep as you can, up until the top crown. You can also plant them sideways if your raised bed is too shallow. In the square foot gardening grid, you can plant them from one corner to another of your square foot, maximizing the length they are buried. With tomatoes, this is good because tomatoes have tiny hairs growing out of their stem, which in the end can develop a root system from them. This will increase the intake of water from your soil, giving you more time between watering. Now, you know when to plant, what spacing to use, and how to plant. But I have another tip for you. What to plant with what? Or in other words, companion plants. Companion plants are basically sorted into categories: plants that can protect each other by repelling pests, and plants that don't steal each other nutrients, meaning that one plant will use more nitrogen and the other one will use more phosphorus from the soil. So, by planting them together, we can reduce the pest pressure and minimize the nutrient deficiency in our plants that can lead to diseases and poor growth. One of the common companion planting pairs are cucumbers and basil, tomatoes and radishes, and marigolds that can be practically planted with every plant. If you need ideas on what to plant together, I have a video just for you where I present a few square foot gardening layout plants with companion plants in them. So go check it out by following the video that pops on the screen. If you like the video, don't forget to like it and subscribe so you won't miss any other gardening tips and tricks. Happy gardening!